Hey, what's up? Hello. Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
My name's Dyl. We're still here in person. We're doing all these at one time. So last episode, I did mention we were answering questions. I failed to...
Not this episode.
Yeah, realize that we can't answer them this episode or next episode.
Yeah.
So the one after that, when we're not in person, we're answering your questions out there. So keep commenting them down below. Subscribe, like, helps us, keeps you involved. We talked picture today. It's time for some acting stuff.
There's so much up in the air right now and so many questions. Especially, we don't really know any of these performances. We don't really know what they're going to be doing, how much they're going to be doing. So this is so totally blind. With picture, it's a lot easier, I think. Sometimes you can just be like, oh yeah, this director's going to make a film. I like the synopsis. With acting, it's much harder to guess from a distance, but we're going to try. And I'm going to start off with Best Actor. My number one right now is one that I think a lot of people are going to have, and a lot of people are going to agree with, and it is Colman Domingo for Sing Sing.
What? Never would have guessed that.
Oh my gosh. For one thing, we've got a TIFF tribute stat, which is that every year since 2019, TIFF has given out 2 acting awards, and one of those acting awards has gone on to win one of the acting categories. 2019, Joaquin Phoenix in Joker. 2020, Anthony Hopkins in The Father. 2021, Jessica Chastain, The Eyes of Tammy Faye. And then 2022 was Brendan Fraser.
Joker played at TIFF?
Joker played at TIFF.
Did not know that.
Joker played at TIFF and won an award there. Every year it's happened. And last year, they gave the award to Colman Domingo for Sing Sing. And at the time, everyone was like, oh, well, they meant Rustin, but they couldn't say Rustin because the film was struck. And then Sing Sing premiered, and they went, oh, no, they meant Sing Sing. This is the performance of Colman Domingo's career. This is what it's all been leading up to. The thing that I think is really on its side here is that with Sing Sing, not only is this going to be a bigger player, a bigger contender than Rustin ever was, it's an opportunity for Colman Domingo to flex his acting muscles, specifically because he's playing someone who's in the theater, and Colman Domingo has spent much of his life in the theater. He gets to represent himself very truthfully. Also, work with non-actors, which, as we see, worked really well with Frances McDormand in Nomadland. I think part of the reason she won is because she was working with non-actors and getting great performances out of them alongside Chloe Zhao. McDormand was really working to draw out the naturalism in these actors through her performance. And that's why I'm really riding high on Colman Domingo right now.
We just saw last year, they do like him with Rustin. He hit everywhere. It wasn't like he just surprised at Oscar. He got SAG, he got Golden Globe, he got BAFTA, right?
Yeah. Everything.
He got everything.
He got every single nomination.
And if he got in for a movie that people just didn't love, then he's going to get in for a movie that is going to be a top 3. Even if he didn't get in last year, I think that would only have helped him. But the fact that he did get in just shows that he had the chance to woo people. He got on the trail. People liked him. He has a great energy to him. And like you said, he has the performance.
A lot of these movies, we don't know whether they're good or not. We're just assuming. But we do know Colman Domingo. So even if he doesn't end up winning, he is being nominated. But I think he has a great argument for a win. Off of the love that he got from his Rustin performance, the movie didn't get the love, but people saw that and they were like, yeah, Colman Domingo he's the real deal.
He's a baller.
This just seems so perfect for me. It's a non-narrative win. It doesn't feel like there's any narrative tied to it where it's like Colman Domingo has to win because he's Colman Domingo. I still think a lot of people don't really know or care that much about him as a movie star, but I think that he's really well respected as an actor, and I think his performances speak for themselves.
My one concern is the fact that it's so unanimous at this time, because that's what it was for Bradley Cooper last year. That's one of the reasons why I wasn't for Bradley Cooper last year. I'm not going to not pick Colman Domingo just because of that fact. Like last year, I had a feasible alternative. This year, I don't know. I just feel like I said, the goodwill of coming off of Rustin, I mean, Color Purple for that matter, even though he wasn't nominated, and then his casting in the upcoming Michael movie, there's a lot going for him. And while it's not a career narrative, it's still a narrative.
To your point of it feels weird that we're thinking of him so early, I say Anthony Hopkins in The Father. People saw it at Sundance and went, oh my God, Anthony Hopkins in The Father is winning the Oscar. And then as the year went on, we went, not sure about that. And then it was just Anthony Hopkins at the end of the day. And to me, Colman Domingo feels like the type of, we've seen the performance. just like with Anthony Hopkins. We haven't seen the performance, but people have seen the performance, just like with Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where it was just like too good to deny. And I do think later in the year, people are going to flip and be like, oh, it's going to be a narrative. It's going to be something else. But I think people are right early. And I think people, when they switch, are going to regret switching away from Coleman Domingo.
Sebastian Stan seems very likely, especially
Number
if
2.
The Apprentice is a contender. I'll let you talk about why in favor, but I'll give a reason why maybe not in favor. He's playing Trump from what we can been told. He's not making like a caricature out of him. He's just playing him straight. And some people will like that. Other people will be like, wait, this is all you're doing?
Some people are going to want the Sam Rockwell and Vice version of it.
Yes.
But I think this is going to be the strength of the film, is that they're not playing it as a caricature.
Like,
they're playing it as like Trump as a young man. The reports I've heard from people who were on set, what they said is that he was like eerily uncanny. He looks very Trump, but his performance is apparently really like subtle, and he's doing a bit of a voice, and it's not the like Trump voice that we know. I'm not even gonna try to do one right now. Everything I'm hearing sounds like he's really, really strong in this role. Plus, it's the yearly makeup. There's always a performance that's like buried under a bit of makeup. I think it's a bigger contender. We'll talk about in the supporting categories, bigger contender for supporting, because I do think the biggest thing against Sebastian Stan is that it's oftentimes hard to vote for a villain in the lead acting categories. We saw that even this year, Leonardo DiCaprio not making it into the lineup for Best Actor. And a lot of that is because people want their lead role to be someone to root for. And oftentimes supporting is much easier to go for someone that you're rooting against. But a villain in a lead role is a bit of a harder sell. Having Trump as a main character, people might feel repulsed by that performance.
I currently have Stan as my number 3, so like it's not crazy to me that he's number 2. So who do you have at number 3?
Ralph Fiennes.
Conclave.
Ralph Fiennes for Conclave is my number 3. This is a narrative performance. This is, I totally think the narrative here is so compelling. Not only was he snubbed for the Grand Budapest Hotel when a lot of people thought that he should have been there, he had a lot of precursors for it, but think back to 1993, Schindler's List. 31 years old now. They haven't really had an opportunity to award him in a lead role. And if Conclave is a big Best Picture player, which it could be, I mean, obviously we're kind of torn on that, where it seems like it should be fake, but also the signs are kind of pointing in the direction of Focus Features has a lot of faith in this film. If Conclave comes, Ralph Fiennes is there. And if Ralph Fiennes is there, there's a strong, strong argument for him being a winner. This is where I start to get a little bit questionable. So I start to kind of waver and go, I don't know for sure what's happening here. But my next one is Joaquin Phoenix and Joker Folie à Deux. And the tricky thing here is we've very, very rarely, I think one of the only times we've seen someone be nominated for the same role twice is Al Pacino for The Godfather. And I think Bing Crosby also got 2 nominations for one role. I can't remember any other circumstance. Cate Blanchett in Elizabeth and Elizabeth the Golden Age. That's another circumstance of someone being nominated multiple times for the same role. But it's Joaquin Phoenix and Joker. And it's such a big role where we've seen multiple different actors be nominated for playing Joker. And I don't see why, if Joker 2 is really big, why they wouldn't go for Joaquin Phoenix again, other than maybe the possibility of all of the heat being on Lady Gaga instead of on Joaquin Phoenix. That's the only way that I can see Joaquin miss.
That's currently what I'm kind of feeling like for Joker 2 is either it's going to be like Killers of the Flower Moon where the whole press is Gaga, 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 and Joaquin Phoenix is just there. I also can see a world, obviously, I haven't seen the movie. You haven't seen the movie. What if he's supporting this time around?
That's real. I was about to say that. That was going to be my next point of like, what if he's sidelined and Harley Quinn is the main character?
Which I think if that's the case, he gets a nomination. If he's in supporting, I think he's in without a question. I think it is just the Gaga show. And I think it's going to be very much like Killers of the Flower Moon where the press is around her. Phoenix has already done his rounds. So he's going to be there in support, not pro him. And
because he doesn't care about Oscars, but he sees how much Gaga does and he might be like, I'm gonna help you, but I don't care.
Well, he doesn't care unless he can win.
So I'm at my number 5
now.
Okay,
one more.
And this one I don't really know what to do. I think I'm falling down to Andrew Garfield in We Live in Time. We Live in Time, while I'm not too hot on the movie, I feel like it could have 2 very strong performances from Florence Pugh and from Andrew Garfield. It seems very text heavy You know, it's written by a playwright who has had quite a bit of success on stage.
To flip over to like my side of things, I have 3 of the same 5. I have Domingo, I have Stan, I have Phoenix. I have him at my 5th slot. My other 2 slots, I have Daniel Craig in for Queer. I know I'm a lot higher on this film than you are.
Well, this is my number 7.
I just feel like he's someone who maybe hasn't had the role like you talked about of like, oh, he should have won, but he feels like someone who's like, he should be in the conversation. He doesn't have that much Academy love throughout his career, and maybe he'll just be someone who's like, oh my gosh, Daniel Craig was never an Oscar winner. What?
Well, like, or a nominee. But that's the other thing. He feels like he could be like a Christopher Plummer, where later in his life, people are going to be like, holy shit, we never nominated Daniel Craig for anything. And then you think about it and you're like, well, what was there that we could have nominated him for?
And I just feel like this, if it is a player, it's the same argument you had for Fives and Conclave. And then my number 4 is someone who, similar to you, is not in a picture contender at all, but I just think it's a role that could eat up, and that's Andre Holland, and the actor.
Interesting. The actor has had a really troubled series of events. It was supposed to release in like 2019, 2020, and then it just kept getting delayed and delayed. It was supposed to be Ryan Gosling. He dropped out of the project, and then they were like 2 years delayed in starting shooting, and they've been sitting on the film for like 2 years now. Everything about it just feels like they're kind of burying it a little bit.
That's completely possible.
It feels a little bit like early last year I was flirting with the idea of Adam Sandler in Spaceman, which I was like, what are they doing with this? It was nothing. And to me, Andre Holland and the actor is kind of giving a little bit of that. I'm just worried about that movie in general. But for Daniel Craig, I have him very close to my list. And you convinced me based on this one thing, which is who is going to be nominated for Golden Globe comedy.
Yeah.
And Daniel Craig is one of the only people that I can see.
My alternative was Paul Bettany in the collaboration. Anthony McCartan wrote the script. It was one like Piano Lesson that you talked about in our last episode that did premiere on stage with the same cast, and very, very mixed reception to the production, but they did single out him and they singled out Jeremy Pope, saying that they were both excellent. The collaboration seems more like it would be weird if one got in without the other, and I don't have Jeremy Pope in.
What do you think of Adam Driver in Megalopolis?
It's like a weird thing for me because like Adam Driver's an actor I love, but at the same time, he does not have a great track record of picking films. This could be another example of not great film, not great role. This could be an example of like a Marriage Story where like he's just phenomenal enough they're gonna put him in. I think it just comes down to Megalopolis overall. Is it real? If it's real, he's in. If it's not real, he's out.
It's a big spectacle movie. It's the type of film where even if the movie is real, it doesn't need to bring actors along with it. Timothée Chalamet is my number 8 for Dune Part 2. He feels like Tom Cruise in Top Gun Maverick, where he's just going to kind of coast by right on the edge the whole year long. He might pick up like a Critics' Choice nomination, maybe a SAG nomination, and then at the end of the day, it's just a question of how strong is Dune, for one, and how weak is the category. If the category is really weak, Timothée Chalamet is an easy slip in. He's a big step up from the first film in terms of his performance specifically. He's got things standing in his way because blockbuster actors, it's hard to get in as a blockbuster actor. Ask Margot Robbie in Barbie last year. In a lead role, you're not going to be taken as seriously in a movie that's as big as Dune or Barbie or Top Gun. After that, I have Ethan Harice, The Nickel Boys, as my number 9. This role I find very, very, very compelling. It just seems like there's a lot of emotion to it. We're going to see the Gabriel Labelle syndrome happen, where if you're young, you have a massive uphill battle. If you're not Timothée Chalamet in Call Me By Your Name, then you're going to have a really hard time getting a nomination in a lead category. Teens can get nominated in supporting. It's still difficult, but it can happen. My number 10 is Glenn Powell in Hitman. I've seen this performance. It's great. If we're talking Golden Globe, who could be nominated, who could win? Yeah, Glenn Powell. We got Josh behind the camera here. Josh is going to co-sign right now.
Josh approved.
Josh approved. The only reason he's not close to my top 5 is that Netflix is dumping the film in the summer. And we've seen in the past, Netflix dumps movies in the summer and they forget about them. He's going to get some of the precursors and he is going to miss the Oscar because Netflix just does not care. And a couple of others to toss out here. I'm really, really looking very keenly at Bill Skarsgård in Nosferatu. That could be a great performance. Buried under makeup, could be very spooky, scary. It depends if Nosferatu is a big player. Paul Mescal could be really big in the history of sound. If the history of sound is big, Paul Mescal, Josh O'Connor, whichever one is the lead. And then I guess might as well mention Nicholas Hoult, juror number 2. He could definitely happen as well. John David Washington, the protagonist, is in the piano lesson, and that could be a player as well. But I think he's going to be outshined by Samuel L. Jackson.
The only other name I have to add to your list, and this movie's a joke, but it's a type of role that does hit at least at one precursor, and that's Kingsley Ben-Adir for Bob Marley.
I had him on my list, and then I took him out because I was like, who's going to do that?
Well, I mean, Respect got something, so I feel like he could hit at SAG.
But Respect must have performed at least a little bit better.
Bob Marley's a hit right now with audiences, at least.
Shit. Okay, you might be right for like a SAG nomination?
I don't know, SAG, CCA, one of those.
What if
Globe?
What if Globe puts him in comedy musical?
It's not a comedy. He doesn't sing.
He doesn't sing?
Like, barely ever.
Oh.
So it's strictly
Then
Bob
he's
Marley
not
the
in
person.
Globe.
Let's move us over to Best Lead Actress. There's 2 people you could have at number 1, and I feel like a lot of people are going to disagree on these 2. You can either have Angelina Jolie for Maria, or you can have who I think will sweep Lady Gaga
I think
in
you
Joker
could
2.
put a third at
Let's
number 1.
hear number 3. Let's hear number 3.
Saoirse Ronan. Saoirse Ronan, the Outrun, could be a contender for number 1. Not Blitz. I think she's supporting. We'll talk about that later. I took her down after I heard a couple of things about the Outrun that it sounds like a Reese Witherspoon and Wild type thing. I have your 1 and 2 as well. Lady Gaga, Angelina Jolie. But I think Ronan could make it into that conversation too.
My issue with Ronan is the film. She would be a solo nomination for it. And then if Blitz is big, if she has a role that's somewhat prominent in Blitz, it's just going to go to Blitz. I don't see her pulling a Scarlett Johansson double nomination, a Jamie Foxx double nomination without the Outrun being a picture thing. It just, to me, seems like one of those things that people hype up early every year. Not saying it's the same level as 1001 Tiana Taylor. And honestly, if it doesn't have a distributor yet, that might be a sign of the fact that it had such a big performance out of a fest and it's been like a month and a half and no one's touched it.
Well, I don't know for sure, but I have heard word that they are in talks with a distributor, but it's not locked yet.
For me, I think the best outlook would be if it goes to Sony. Yeah. Sony would be the one place where I would have faith in it, just because they have nothing else really to push, and they can focus on actress, they can focus on screenplay, and they could maybe pull a double.
Netflix could do very well with this movie.
Netflix's things are usually more showy.
But how do we know this is not showy?
At least the people who've seen
everything I've heard is she's screaming and yelling.
Okay.
Maybe she's playing a recovering addict who's going through it.
Well, I currently have her at my number 6 because I do have Blitz and as my number 5.
That's cool. Sorry to derail. I want to hear your thoughts on Lady Gaga because I know some people are going to be pissed about this.
She's going to campaign. I think the issue of House of Gucci is people didn't like the movie, and that's why she didn't win.
Campaign?
I don't think there's such thing as over campaigning.
Bradley Cooper would say otherwise.
Ask his film. I think if Maestro is more liked, he wins regardless. Same thing with Elvis. If the movie is liked, in which I'm expecting Joker 2 to be liked, it does not matter how annoying your campaign is. The fact that you're being seen, any press is good press. She is going to be doing something. And if the reception to Joker was anywhere close to Joker 1 and it's doing so much different, that's Globe. That's BAFTA. That's SAG. That's Critics' Choice.
SAG for sure.
I think the real reason she didn't win for House of Gucci was the fact that she didn't get the nomination. I think if she got the nomination, she wins at 100%.
Oh, no.
I think she wins at 100%.
No. She was so bad in that movie.
It doesn't matter if she was bad.
She was nominated for Golden Globe, right?
But at that point, yeah.
And lost, right?
I
think SAG was the same. I think Lady Gaga was there because she was nominated for everything and she lost everything.
Maybe I'm putting a spin on it that doesn't need to have a spin. I don't know. I just feel very strong that Gaga, this is going to happen. I feel like
Fair enough.
Warner is putting the effort into the early promo. I feel like it's going to go to Venice again. I don't know if she's going to win the prize, but I think she could win actress at Venice. And she has a lot going for her. And this role is like A Star is Born, right up her alley. And this one's probably even more showy than that one was.
And I think people are taking her more seriously as an actor now.
And I also don't think she has real competition, unlike those years.
Well, that's the other thing, because your other one that you mentioned, Angelina Jolie and Maria, I'll let you talk about it for a second, but we've seen multiple times now, Pablo Larraín gets actors close to a win, but they cannot win.
And that's because their movies are not liked. You can say that the critics love them, but they are not favored well from the public. However, what you can say is what you said in Picture. This is not about a huge star. That bias that's coming in, the expectations aren't already there, could help her out.
I don't think Angelina Jolie's warranted a career second Oscar.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's great, but she hasn't done a ton over the past like 10, 15 years. She's like taking a step back. She directs more now.
And that leaves me with 2 more spots. I've already mentioned Saoirse Ronan for Blitz. Next up, I guess I will refer to my sheet down here. I have Uzo Aduba for The Supremes at Earl's All You Can Eat. Don't know if she's lead. Don't know if she's supporting. But I feel like they will do the favorite with this. Someone gets put in lead. 2 of them go supporting. And I kind of feel like all 3 will get in.
I personally have 2 Supremes women in supporting because I think they're all going to go supporting.
That makes sense. But also for an awards where, and this is Searchlight, they're smart with this type of stuff. They'll throw one in lead. Maybe the who goes lead is the weakest of the 3.
Did they campaign anyone in lead for Hidden Figures? Because that's a similar thing where it's like it's about 3 women. All of them feel like it's not any one of their stories in specific.
Mm-hmm. I know that Spencer and Monet kind of flip-flopped where they got nominations, but I don't know if Taraji was put in lead or she just was the one who didn't get any love on the campaign trail.
Poor
Again,
Taraji.
I don't know. I have her in lead currently, but easily this could be anyone else. Could be Ingenue Ellis. She's the biggest of the bunch, so that would make sense for her to go lead. Just going again off Brother Bro's app. This is who had the most love and lead on there so far. So just, backpacking off of that. And my 5th slot, this one's a pretty dumb pick, but looking at the rest of my options, I don't feel strong enough about anyone else. So I have the end in picture, and maybe Tilda Swinton can backpack her way into a lead actress nomination. If it gets strong buzz out of Cannes, if it's getting a director and screenplay, maybe it could get an actress, kind of similar to Sandra Hüller for Zone. I know she didn't get it at the end of the day, but she was probably number 6. And that's kind of how I feel about Swinton right now. Weaker category, maybe she could get in. Stronger category, I would push her out. It's like there's Zendaya in Challengers, there's Arrivo for Wicked.
I feel very strongly. I think Zendaya is supporting.
She could be. I know you've read the script, but I also feel like there's a chance they just put her in lead.
They might just put her in lead anyways, but her role is supporting.
Arrivo, maybe, but like if I have Arrivo in lead, there's no reason for me not to have Wicked in picture. I think if Fantasia made lead for Color Purple would have found its way into picture.
Same with like Mary Poppins Returns.
With Blunt, yeah.
If Blunt was in actress, the movie would have been in picture.
So that's my one reservation. That's one reason why I had Wicked in for so long, is because I had it getting these 3-4 tech nominations, and then I had an actress as well. And I was like, that's good enough to get in slot 10, slot 9. I currently don't have Revo in, and I don't have it in picture, so I may make that switch sometime down the line. I don't believe in Jessica Lange at all. I think this is a fake movie. I think when it comes out, it's nothing. Everything with this.
You also called Nyad a fake movie, though, right? And it's giving the exact same energy.
I called Nyad a fake movie until it was Saul, so I'll cave on this.
Yeah, when it's seen and like people are actually like, oh,
yeah,
she's good in it.
Yeah,
Fair
so
enough.
I'll do that.
This is a big thing. Is like they've talked about the movie's not done. It might just be floating in limbo. But I do think whenever it comes out, she's gonna get some nominations. Will it be the Oscar? I don't know, but like she's gonna get a Golden Globe nomination, Critics' Choice. SAG.
And I guess I will admit I would never believed in Benning all the way to the last second. I had Foster and I didn't have Benning. Does that make any sense? No. Other people here to throw out names, I guess, is 2 people I'm sure you'll mention. The lead actress from Emmanuel, the lead actress from Megalopolis.
Noemi Merlan is the one from Emmanuel, and then Natalie Emmanuel is the one from Megalopolis, which is very confusing because they're both Emmanuel.
So I feel like they will be in the conversation if their movies are, but I don't believe in either of their movies at the moment, so that's why they're on my outside looking in.
Well, Noemi Merlan, I'll talk about a little bit first because this feels like the Sandra Hüller of this year, where it's a performance that's going to do very well on the art house circuit. Noemi Merlan is, I mean, she was in Portrait of a Lady on Fire, and she's kind of had like a bit of a breakout moment since then where people talk about her. She's been in a few American films, and I think this might be her moment to shine in a similar way to like Sandra Hüller.
I guess to me more so than Sandra Hüller, I feel like a good comparison could be like Kristen Stewart and Spencer.
Yeah, that's
where it's not
possible.
A picture thing, but it's still strong enough an actress from the international.
Yeah, maybe, but I do have Emmanuel as a possible picture thing. Natalie Emmanuel in Megalopolis, very confusing saying both of these back to back, but I don't know anything about the performance. I don't know anything about her, and I'm really excited. This seems like it could be a big breakout role, especially if Mega is big, but I don't know enough about it to feel confident about it. So she's just kind of floating around for me. What do you think about Florence Pugh?
She's someone who has been in the game for a little bit, has gotten some love. I feel like she would be stronger than Garfield between the two. Like, I don't know if they're going to go back to the Garfield well so soon in lead, where Hughes wasn't supporting. This is her bridge to the lead acting category.
Right.
And again, I think that there is kind of an open fifth slot, especially if we don't want to have a 5-for-5 picture actress overlap, where like she could find her way in there. It's just like I want to see like a trailer or something to know, is it just a romance or is it like more to it?
Some others to mention, Amy Adams in Night Bitch is one that I've been hearing a lot of positive buzz about. She was apparently slated to receive the TIFF prize for Best Actor alongside Coleman Domingo, but they pushed the film because of the strike. I've heard rumors this is going to be like a Hulu film, but why would they push it because of the strike if it's a Hulu film? They could have just dumped it.
Amy Adams promoting it for streaming, but again, yeah, I agree.
It feels weird for it to be, and this is one that could be a comedy musical Golden Globe win, but also Amy Adams has had a few misfires, so this one would be a return to form.
I feel like I've heard about this movie for like 5 years now. It's kind of like Next Goal Wins, where like every year it's like, oh yeah, Night Bitch is coming, Amy Adams Oscar time, and then movies nowhere to be talked about next year. Same thing. Next year, same thing. I feel like I've heard about this movie since like COVID. Now we're here in the 2025 season, and it's like, oh, it's actually coming this year, guys. Believe it. And then I feel like kind of like what you talked about for the actor earlier.
They didn't shoot it and like hold it for too long. Like they shot it pretty recently. They just held it because of the strikes. That could have been an excuse. You're big on Nosferatu. What do you think of Lily Rose Depp?
I feel like Nosferatu will not be an actor thing. It's a tech push.
Not even Skarsgård? You wouldn't have him as a possibility?
I would have him like lower, like 10 plus
like
range.
Around where I am.
Yeah. I don't see an acting nomination coming along with the film unless it's like top 3.
I think Skarsgård could do it without top 3, but Lily Rose Depp is a harder sell.
I also think regardless of how good she is, it won't happen because of who she is and how new she is.
Yeah, obviously, Johnny Depp's name doesn't have goodwill to be like, oh, let's give her a nomination.
And I also don't think that they're going to pull in a performance like what hers most likely is going to be in this film.
Yeah, which is like a 19th century scream queen. Another one worth mentioning, Ryan Destiny and Flint Strong. I'm very not hot on Flint Strong. I think there is a reason why Barry Jenkins is not directing this movie. But Ryan Destiny could show up at SAG or like Golden Globe. It's one of those performances.
I feel like both of the league categories, it's like kind of clear who your top 1 and 2 are.
Yeah.
And the rest of it's kind of like open, but it's not super deep. But supporting this year, I feel like both of them are kind of deep. But like besides number 1, there's not a lot of like locked people.
I would agree with that. I think supporting actress, which I'll talk about next, because it touches on a lot of the same territory that you just had. This is a strong lineup. I think, especially if some of the ones that we're unsure whether they're lead, whether they're supporting, if they end up in supporting, which I think they will. Ooh, we got a good category. So I do think all of the women from Supremes are going to be campaigned in supporting, and I do think everyone in Blitz is going to be supporting. I think it's going to be a total ensemble piece where like everyone is just there for a few scenes. But my number 1 in the category is Maria Bakalova in The Apprentice. If The Apprentice wins Best Picture, it needs to take one of the acting prizes. And I think it has a strong argument for both supporting categories. Maria Bakalova is playing Ivana Trump, and it's set in the 80s during the period of time in which Donald Trump did assault her. She's an actor who I think people really respect what she did in Borat. They just couldn't give her the award for Borat in particular. But this one, they can.
It's very sad they couldn't give her the award for Borat because I think that
she
was
deserved
by far the best of that year. But, you know, I agree. I have her at my number 1 as well. And I feel like in a Trump movie, they probably don't want to award the Trump character themselves, but this is the person who they can award.
They absolutely can award. Like it's the not the innocent character, but it's the less detestable character, especially because the supporting actor that we're going to talk about in a bit is like going to be the slimeball villain of the movie, even more than Sebastian Stan as Trump. Like Jeremy Strong is going to be sleazy. Maria Bakalova, I think, is going to be potentially the heart of the film, what keeps people not hating every single person in the movie. I think that's really, really compelling. Joan Chen could be a thing in Dee Dee. So many people say that they absolutely loved it. They said that she like melted their hearts. I want to talk Dune. We have 2 supporting actresses in Dune that seem really promising. The first one I'd say would be Rebecca Ferguson. Rebecca Ferguson got some nominations, not any big precursors, but like regional critics were mentioning Rebecca Ferguson. She was in the conversation for Dune Part 1, and she's doing so much more here. And so while she was only talked about by regional critics for the first film, she could make some actual precursors for this one. But then there's also Zendaya. And Zendaya has a major role in this one. I would say is actually the protagonist of Dune Part 2. And I think Denis Villeneuve would say that she's the protagonist of Dune Part 2. The movie starts and ends on her, and it's her journey that we're seeing the whole film through.
That's exactly why I have her getting the nomination, which is a little crazy to say. I just think Warner is going to push specific people for Dune, because I think if they leave it open to critics to pick, if they leave it open to the narratives to form, we're going to have a case like Women Talking where no one hits. If they don't tell you specifically who to vote for, neither get in. Same thing for supporting actor as well. I think they will distinctively say Javier Bardem because he's an Academy favorite in supporting actor, and then Zendaya over here in supporting actress. She is the talk of the town currently. She has a role here that maybe isn't overtly showy like Ferguson, but Ferguson had that in the first one, and it didn't go as far as maybe they wanted, but I also don't think they pushed her. I know it wasn't as showy, but maybe I'm letting my bias speak again. I think she was a lot better in the first one than the second one. The reverse can be said that here for Zendaya. This would very much be like an America Ferrera type nomination where like it's not going to be a precursor thing. It may hit at like Globe or at Critics' Choice, but
probably
then,
like a 1 or 2 precursor.
Yeah, but then because of how strong the movie is, it's going to pull in someone. Maybe that's just over in supporting actor, but currently I had that in 2 categories.
That said, sci-fi movies don't often pull in actors.
That is true, but I'm not looking at doing it as a sci-fi movie, because if that's the case, I think you need to remove its director nomination. You need to remove any chances in screenplay. We're looking at it as a serious Oscar contender, and those movies, just like Barbie last year, can pull additional nominations due to love during the voting period.
Here's another one that I saw at TIFF, and I think is a very strong supporting actress contender, and it is Natasha Lyonne for His Three Daughters. It's being released by Netflix. They have not released a date, which means it's not going to be a summer movie. They also haven't brought it to any festivals, whereas like Hitman, they brought it to Sundance. His Three Daughters, I think they're going to put out in the fall. If they put it out in the fall, and it enters into their Oscar lineup, maybe it's a screenplay contender. And definitely it's a Natasha Lyonne contender for supporting actress, because she is phenomenal.
So all 3 of them are supporting in this one?
All of them are supporting.
Okay. Because I think I agree with a lot with what you said. I don't think it would be a picture contender, but I think it could be like Lost Daughter, where it picks up multiple nominations above the line. Is that a supporting actress in a screenplay? Is that 2 supporting actresses to a picture?
But very hard to point out a second supporting actress, because Elizabeth Olsen is good, but she hasn't been getting the raves. And I think it's Carrie Coon for the last one.
Yeah, I had seen Olsen predicted from some people, so that's why I was like,
I would be very surprised. I liked Olsen a lot, but it's clear when you talk with people, they're talking about Natasha Lyonne.
So yeah, I guess maybe not Lost Daughter. Regardless, Netflix is the place to go if you want acting nominations in your films, and I think if they campaign her right, they get her out there. My issue is like, where else can this movie show? Like, it can't go back to TIFF. They can't show it 2 years in a row. There's no other fall fest that I feel like would really.
They could take it to like New York. They could take it to Telluride. They could take it to like AFI. They could do regional festivals. Like this is going to play VAF next year.
Yeah.
If they don't put it on Netflix beforehand, this seems like the type of thing like with Sound of Metal. Amazon bought Sound of Metal out of TIFF, and they held on to it for a full year, and then they played it everywhere. It was at all of the regional festivals in 2020 online. I just want to see the goddamn release date and know that they're not dumping His Three Daughters like they're dumping Hitman. Some other ones to mention, Naomi Watts for Emmanuelle. I don't know how big her role is going to be. She could be just like a bit part, because we sometimes see that. Like I remember back in 2017, it was really compelling to predict Elizabeth Moss for The Square, but then she was barely in the film. Same with like Woody Harrelson, Triangle of Sadness. Looking from a distance, I remember being like, oh, Woody Harrelson's the Hollywood guy, and he's in Triangle of Sadness. And he was not the big part of Triangle of Sadness. That's how I feel with Naomi Watts, where I'm looking and being like, is she actually really in the movie? Or does she just seem like she's really in the movie because she's a Hollywood person?
I know this movie's probably not going to be anything, but if juror number 2 does hit,
I was going to say that was one of the ones. Toni Collette, juror number 2, totally on my horizons. Clint Eastwood can get actors in. even when he phones it in. Some other ones as well. Aubrey Plaza, Megalopolis. Would be weird to see Aubrey Plaza get an Oscar nomination, but she's good. She's good.
Yeah.
She's good when she flexes.
White Lotus.
She is good. And Michaela Cole would be the other one for Mother Mary. People are really riding high on Mother Mary, but to me, it looks like Waves. It looks like a movie that people are going to love. It's going to play at some of the fall festivals, but it's not going to be big enough or like have enough of a hook to actually get voters on its side. It's just going to be like Letterboxd teens and college students being like, oh my God, Mother Mary's so slay.
I feel like how people are like negating Nosferatu. It's kind of how I'm negating Mother Mary because of the director, David Lowery. I don't think he'll ever make anything that's...
No, he
tasteful.
almost did. For The Old Man and the Gun was very much in the conversation for Robert Redford.
Yeah.
But this is not The Old Man and the Gun. This is a
too.
movie about like EDM music.
I've seen people say Hathaway can win. I'm like,
No,
she can't. But you know, speaking of
it's
crazy
like,
stuff,
it's like A24's sixth movie.
But before we go to supporting actor, I have one more crazy one for supporting actress. And I said this in lead actress. If Arrivo's in, how far can Grande be off?
Very far. Very astronomically far.
You say that and watch the movie come out and she hits some places.
Okay.
They will campaign her. Will it work?
Let me
No,
humor this
but they
for a
will
moment.
campaign her.
Because after the Oscars, I like Ariana Grande a lot more. I like her. I've always liked her music. I'm going to say that, right? I don't want to seem like a hater. Thank You Next is one of my favorite pop albums ever made. But Ariana Grande as an actor, like, we saw Don't Look Up. If she was playing herself there, she was playing the most, like, alien version of herself, where it was just like, are you a person? But then I watched the Oscars this year, and Ariana Grande on the red carpet was just like, did you see her freak out with Michelle Yeoh? She's on the red carpet. She's wearing her ridiculous poofy dress, and she sees Michelle Yeoh, and she screams, and she like almost starts crying, and it felt so genuine. When she presented Song, I was like, I like you. You seem like a genuinely kind soul. You seem like a good person. I'm on an Ariana Grande train of like, I like her as a person.
Yeah.
But I have seen nothing from her as an actor that makes me think she could pull this off. But humoring it, Glinda the Good Witch from Wicked
Has the role.
is a role that does not need someone who is a well-trained actor to do, because the role is to be a little ditzy and to sing a little song, and she's going to kill the songs. If she just plays the role of like Kat from Victorious as Glinda, then like she's going to do what the role needs.
I don't think she's going to get the Oscar nomination. I think she
Golden
could hit precursors like Globe, like SAG. I think she could hit maybe both of those.
Old Golden Globe, not
Critics' Choice, maybe. I don't know.
You know what? She seems like a perfect Satellite Award nomination.
But that is going to move us over to supporting actor. Kind of already said who our number one is. It's Samuel L. Jackson for The Piano Lesson. And like, again,
Narrative.
like lead actor, it feels wrong to be in agreement for this. But everything around this seems like it should be a winner. Samuel L. Jackson won an honorary Oscar.
He wants it too. Did you hear him talking when he won that honorary Oscar, being like, I should have an Oscar by now?
He's going to go out of his way to make sure that this does happen. And it's like the overtly campaigning with Gaga.
You know what
Is
I
it
want to
going to be too much? No.
I want to see Samuel L. Jackson say motherfucker at the Oscars. And I don't want them to bleep it. Their ratings would shoot through the roof if they let Samuel L. Jackson say motherfucker.
Yeah, Samuel L. Jackson, he's my number one Piano Lesson. That's the main reason why I do have it in picture. And I think even if it falters off in picture, if he's a sweeper, he can overcome that lack of Best Picture nomination.
And if he wins, he would be a sweeper.
So that's going to bring me to my other nominees. I do have double nominations in both categories this year. Is that smart?
Woo-hoo.
Probably not. But I have both Sing Sing Boys in here. I have Clarence Macklin and I have Paul Raci. Do I feel overtly strong about both? I don't. But I have Sing Sing winning picture. I need to have, support for it around the board. And I think double nominations would lead to support. I think SAG Ensemble is a very likely thing for this film. But my other ones I have are Jeremy Strong for The Apprentice. I'm not very high on like a win contender here. I do have him as a firm nomination though.
But you know what's scary about Jeremy Strong and The Apprentice is that it goes against everything I believe in terms of Emmy to Oscar pipeline.
Yeah.
Which is that if someone has been like in a TV show racking up Emmy wins and people go, they're an Oscar contender for this movie, I go, no, they're not. Sit down.
The issue usually with that is though, those movies aren't Oscar contenders to begin with.
But I think back to Jean Smart in Babylon, where she was big in Hacks. She won a bunch of awards, and then people were like, she's in Babylon, and because she won the Emmys, she's going to win this. And I'm worried that Jeremy Strong, they're just like, Succession, here you go. And the Oscars don't think like that. Whereas Letterboxd and the Oscar predicting community online, they do think like that. They think, I liked this person in Succession. I want them to be nominated, so I'm going to predict them. There's been reports that he might actually be more of a lead than Donald Trump.
Which I think would be better.
But here's the thing. Even if Jeremy Strong has more screen time than Sebastian Stan, I think they put him supporting and they put Donald Trump in lead. It feels like The Favorite, where the lead role might have less screen time. Like Olivia Colman was on screen less than Emma Stone, and yet Emma Stone was in supporting and Olivia Colman was in the lead. And it was just because, like, who is the center of the story? Even if it's not who is the main character, who is the protagonist, it's who is the center. And the center of the story was Queen Anne. And I think the center of the story is going to be Donald Trump, even if we see more of Jeremy Strong.
The last thing we'll talk about The Apprentice before we move on to some of my other potentials for a supporting actor is, what is the off chance this movie's just She Said? Where, like, it has so much buzz, and then it does absolutely nothing, where, like, supporting actor, supporting actress, lead actor, one of these, like, hits occasionally, like Carey Mulligan did, and screenplay is like, and then it's out, and at the end of the day, it's just nothing. No one cares. The really interesting thing with The Apprentice is going to be whoever picks up, when do they release it? They do it before voting?
It'll be like October.
Or they do it after. Because if it's before,
that's right before voting.
Super quick turnaround after TIFF, if it goes to TIFF.
Well, there's rumors it's going to hit Cannes, which is wild because they finished shooting in February.
Yeah, that would be super quick turnaround. Reading off the list here, tell me who seems the strongest to get a nomination, because I'm going to tell you all these names. They don't seem very strong to me. Harris Dickinson, Blitz.
Not sure.
Jeremy Pope, The Collaboration.
I'm less high on that movie than you are.
Drew Starkey, Queer.
Possible. Could be a breakout.
George McKay, The End.
No.
John Lithgow, Conclave.
I do believe that.
And then Denzel Washington, Gladiator 2.
I want to hear more of your argument for that one, because I know you're pretty hot on
I am
Denzel.
pretty hot on Denzel, but he would be my number 6, because I left off a name there who's my number 5. And I don't care if you believe, because I believe in Javier Bardem for Dune Part 2. So many people out there are going to him saying he is the performance of the movie. It's already starting now. We're in March. Just think about when we get into award season, and think about who happens to find their way into Oscar season whenever he has a new movie out. Even if that movie's not strong, it's Javier Bardem.
Flashbacks to being the Ricardos.
Yeah, being the Ricardos. He had no reason to be in the conversation, and he still was. Regardless of my thoughts on Dune and picture and director, I think he will come along unless we get a new strong contender coming out of the woodworks. I just feel like he checks off so many boxes of, 1, well-established actor, 2, multiple-time Oscar nominee and Oscar-winning actor, 3, in a movie that's probably going to have an overperformance if it's for real top 5 in Best Picture. Right. The only thing going against him is the fact that Dune's a sci-fi. But if Dune is a Oscar real player, it doesn't matter if it's a sci-fi. I would pick Butler over Bardem, but I think Bardem's more likely for a nomination. Denzel, on the other hand, is kind of the same thing, just in a lot less strong of a movie. He has a very meaty role. Apparently, he's playing an ex-slave who's free, who's now like fighting for his life. Yeah. It's Denzel Washington. He gets in for movies no one's ever heard of. Gladiator 2 has the potential to be like a top 5 grossing movie of the year. As long as the movie's not awful, I feel like he'll be in the conversation, and I feel like he'll at least get a precursor.
You make a really good point. I could definitely see Denzel Washington making it into my lineup. But there's one you didn't mention, and it's Forrest Whitaker for Megalopolis. Almost the lead role, because the movie's about Adam Driver's character, and then Natalie Emmanuel, and her father is Forrest Whitaker, who is another architect who has very different ideas about how to restore New York City.
I feel like he's had a track record of just pretty bad roles and movies where he's supposed to do something and continuously does nothing. It's one where I will need to see it.
I know you're not big on the Nickel Boys. I'd recommend Fred Heckinger. There's also the Challengers Boys, Mike Feist, Josh O'Connor, as well as the History of Sound Boys, whichever one's supporting, Paul Mescal or Josh O'Connor. And Franz Rogowski is worth mentioning for Bird, which is another A24 movie we haven't talked about yet.
I think there's a reason we haven't talked about it. But
I'll let you talk about it. I think it's going to be forgotten, but Franz Rogowski is kind of having a moment.
He is.
Passages last year. I would say if anyone happens for Bird, it would be him. But we'd want to see him get like BAFTA love first, and he could be a BAFTA nom.
He could be a BAFTA nom, especially with how they do their
Jury.
nominations
Yeah,
over
the jury.
there. But that's going to reach a conclusion here for our acting video. Consider subscribing because up next we're doing directing and screenplay. Super fun stuff. But until then, my name's Dyl.
My name is Matt, and this has been Fantasy Filmball.